Like, it's so cool to stop short. And to not go all in, and to not be fully committed, and not to play full out, and not to be exposed, and not to allow yourself the vulnerability of saying, this is everything I have to give. So it's got to be enough because I got nothing more. I'm becoming successful in what I'm trying to do must mean that it's a trick.
Yeah, there was, yeah. And there's two things I was thinking. I watched this, oh gosh, it's called Explain. And it was the money episode. And they were talking about scams. And some of it was like coaching, online coaching is a scam, because 99% of the people don't get anything out of it. And it kind of like, oh, and I was like, okay, I want to talk to Jeff about this because I want to throw a rock at it. And I don't think it's true. When I first started with Entre, and to put it out there to my audience, is I am a student of Entre for about 5 or 6 months. And in that, I've been building the foundation. You know, when you build an apartment building, you have to dig a hole a long time and put the plumbing in and everything before any building comes up. But that's what Entre is doing for me. And sidebar, the creativity that comes from being an entrepreneur is mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. So when I joined in the Facebook group, and right then Dan Martin, who's one of the coaches, had put up this 90-day video challenge. And I got into the group like a day or two after he put it up. So I really didn't know what it was, but I was like, okay, I'll put up a video every day. I didn't know it was supposed to be like for YouTube, but I put it up on Facebook. And you had said that you had done a 90-day challenge and you were the only one standing at the end of 90 days. And I thought, I'm going to be one of the ones standing. And that's the 99% of people that are saying, I'm not really getting anything out of it. It's because you didn't do the 90-day work.
Right. I mean, to give the detail around that story. So my idea for Entre came in the fall of 2018, and it came out of something that had nothing to do with business and nothing to do with marketing or digital internet or anything. It actually came from a conversation that my wife was having with another family member, because my wife and I had been very committed to getting back into and staying in very good shape for a few years, largely because her mother, my mother-in-law, had passed away from cancer living in our home. And we were both so affected by that we were like, we don't want our kids to go through that. We're going to do everything we can. We're going to start taking care of ourselves. And it became a really formative, bonding thing in our marriage, like be accountability partners for each other's health and vitality. And anyway, so fast forward a couple of years, and my wife was telling somebody else in her family about it was like a silly thing. It was about her glute workout or something. Because this isn't how I got my nice
I remember that. And I was like, I want to know her glute workout.
Yeah, right. Well, I can tell you the key is she works her glutes like 3 days a week. And that was actually what she shared. And the family member said, well, come on, what am I going to do? Because we're not extreme like you and Jeff. Like, we're not going to do that. And I'm like, I was like so pissed because this is a family member. They should get it, and I realized like this person is the tip of the iceberg of the world, which thinks that, it's funny. I still do videos about it to this day. Yesterday, I did a live about it, and I had a new term for it, which is called being fashionably incapable. Like, it's so cool to stop short. And to not go all in, and to not be fully committed, and not to play full out, and not to be exposed, and not to allow yourself the vulnerability of saying, this is everything I have to give. So it's got to be enough because I got nothing more. And people would rather hold back so that if they fail, or if they get humiliated, they look silly, they can be like, oh yeah, well, I wasn't really all in the first place. So that wasn't my best. So don't judge me. No, bullshit. If you're not doing it all the way and being fully judgeable on the basis of how you're doing it because you have nothing else to give, stop wasting everybody's time.
Yeah.
And yet in the world we live in, that's the normal, and we're the weirdos. And it was just my breaking point of that is literally what inspired me to start Entre. And so I was on a stage a couple weeks later speaking at an event that I had helped organize, but it was for a different company. And I said, listen, I want to start this movement. And I think that there's a message that needs to exist in the world, but I don't expect anyone in this audience to support my movement. I want you to think about your movement. I want to think about what you think needs to exist in the world. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go trailblaze a method for getting your voice to catch fire in the world. Because I believe that every person in this audience, just as I believe of myself, we can go out and create change in this world, leveraging these technologies and these tools that exist without having to spend a lot of money. It's not like it was 30 years ago when if you wanted to reach millions of people, you had to go make a Super Bowl commercial, right? And so I said, and I told them, and I had a methodology. I was like, I'm gonna do this on YouTube. I'm gonna do this on Facebook. I'm gonna grow my followings. I'm gonna hit this threshold. I'm going to use this strategy. And I had a consultant that was going to help me. And I was like, who wants to do this with me? And, there were probably 50 people in the room and like 45 of them raised their hand. I mean, everybody wanted to do this with me. And I said, great, I'm going to and I sold a product, by the way, it's $1,500. And it was called the Social Media 10 Explosion. Like I was kind of piggybacking off of Grant Cardone's 10X thing, 10 Explosion. We're going to explode your social media, get your voice out and launch your movement, right? Roughly 40 people paid $1,500 to do this with me. And it was join a Facebook group. And every day in the Facebook group, at the end of the day, I'm going to shoot a video and tell you what I did that day to move my message or my, to grow my mission, right? And then you can presumably watch the video. And the next day you can do what I did the day before. So you'll always be one day behind me, but in the next 60 or 90 days or however long it takes, let's launch 40 movements, right?
Yeah.
And it started with a video a day. And there were some other things like to do with the video and stuff. I'm telling you, I don't remember the exact numbers, but like by day 60, I think there was just me and one other person. 39 out of 40 had dropped out in less than 60 days because they weren't rich yet, or they weren't famous yet, or they hadn't changed the world yet. And then the one person left standing didn't make it to day 90. And I remember getting to day 90 and I was like, should I give the money back? I got 60 grand from these people. And I was like, no, I shouldn't. Because if I give them the money back, the lesson won't sting so bad. If anything, and at the time, to be honest, I needed the money, or I should have just given it to charity or something. But at the time I was like, I think I'm going to eat. But my point is, I didn't get to 90 days either and be like, I'm glad I finished. I was like, oh yeah, I'm glad I started. That was a nice warm up. And in fact, I've probably missed a few days since then over 3 years because I'm busy growing the business, but I've really never missed a day. And it's been maybe 1,000 days now. And the thing to me is when you do the work, it takes 6, and I'm curious your experience. I think it takes 90 days to even figure out who the hell you are in this world and what you have to say.
Yeah. I did the 90 days just solely posting something on Facebook to the first, I think I've only done one Facebook Live and it scared the shit out of me and I didn't do it again, but that's okay. Usually I just did it walking home from taking my kid to school and then I'd post it up. And I even had surgery during this time. And I made these videos that you couldn't see me because I was recovering and my voice sounds kind of like this. I'm like, God darn it. I'm going to do this. But it wasn't like, okay, I'm ended anything. I have done some triathlons and it's that training for triathlons, but it's not the race. It's not the race. It's the getting up every day and getting into a pool when it's 50 degrees and you don't want to do it. And no one's there going, yeah, that's great. Everyone wants the medal at the end. Like my kid always takes my medals.
You nailed it. I did it for a year and nobody cared.
Yeah.
That's the thing. People like Entre now. It's, here is summer 2021. We're definitely the fastest growing and one of a handful of the largest private education companies in the world now. And I mean, we just launched a software company that's, integrated within. We just launched an events company that's integrated within. So now we're education plus software and tools plus personal development events. Like, we're building a beast here, and it's summer 2021. In summer 2019, I mean, it was July 2019, I sold our very first course for $39. So that's 2 years ago. Up until that point, literally nobody cared what I was saying. I mean, a few people were listening, but I had a lot more haters than fans. And the haters were a lot more mean than the fans were encouraging. Thankfully, I had my wife who was like, I believe in you. And she had seen me start things from scratch before and power through and make them work. So she's like, you just need to stay with it. But it's not, you're right. Everybody wants the medal. I saw this great thing the other day about Usain Bolt, the world record sprinter from Jamaica. He won like 9 gold medals, and the entirety of his gold medal races, all 9 of them put together, was less than 2 minutes of running.
But it was all that.
But it was 20 years of training.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think his 9 gold medals and the sponsorships and the endorsements and the TV contracts, everything have generated, $1 billion+ in revenue for him and his agents and his managers and stuff. But it was the 20 years when nobody in the world knew who Usain Bolt was. And so I remember for me being like, oh, it's been 90 days. It's been 6 months. Like, what am I really trying to do here? And that's the key right there, is if the question, what am I really trying to do here, determines the acceptability or your tolerance for whatever it is you've actually had to do to get there. Because if you say, well, what am I really trying to do here? I'm trying to make 50 grand a year to feed my family and get my wife off my back. Okay. If that's all you're trying to do, the level of exertion that I was certainly giving that answer would not have justified the work I was doing.
Right.
Because I could have gone, well, then I should just go get a job, or there's like other ways to do that. But if I say, what am I really trying to do here? Well, I'm trying to change the zeitgeist of the world to go from dependency to empowerment and from collectivism to individual responsibility. And the best way to do that is to, fund or use an adult education movement to fund a war chest to fight a youth education battle, to plant the seeds that'll really sprout of changing civilization over the next 100 years. And then I'd say, well, okay, if that's what I'm trying to do, then I should stop bitching because I still got a lot more work to do.
Yeah.
Right. So it's how you define what you're trying to do is what changes the perspective around what it is that you're actually doing. And I just think people just are scared to give a big enough answer to the question of what am I trying to do?
Or scared even to think big enough. We don't know how to think big enough. And you know what? I don't think I knew how to think big enough until a few months ago. And I'm not kidding. And I tried. So my backstory is I was a script supervisor in film and TV, did a few other jobs within production. And at 45, I got pregnant. Like, what? And so I was 46 when my son was born. And at that point, my husband, he's my only son, and I have 2 stepsons, teenagers. My husband's a cameraman, and there's no way we were sustainable for both of us to work 15 or 16 hours a day. And right. I also teach yoga. And I remember sitting in the parking lot, Lifetime Fitness, where I still teach. And I love it because it's self-expression. And you talked a little bit about voice, and I think entrepreneurial vision is finding your voice. But I was sitting in the parking lot, literally going, am I going to go in and talk to them about doing a yoga studio manager job? And I may or may not leave this in the video, for $12.50 an hour. I kid you not. And I'm like, no. But at 40, but at this time I was like 50. I'm like, I can't go and retrain for another job that I could make as much as I used to make. What am I going to do? And then I was like, I don't need a job. I need an income. And it was like, wow. So I started looking through real estate investing, and, the whole 9 yards of that. I am not a fix and flipper or a wholesaler. I did a little tiny bit of that and just didn't land with me. I do a lot of creative financing stuff. That was right now 3 years ago. So that person that I needed to become is only now becoming at that 2.5, 3 years ago. And when I first met you, was during COVID winter 2020, like December 2020. And I'm outside doing I call it my prison workout. It's like doing YouTube workout, and your ad came on, and I was a little bit aware of marketing or online marketing. So it was on my radar, probably why it came up on my channel. But I stopped working out, and I don't do that. No one, I'm like, get away from me. I'm going to keep working out. I was like, what does this guy say? So I downloaded the book. And then I got real curious, and I did the $39 course. And I remember sitting and saying, I have to have my sons, my teenagers, and my little guy know this. This is something our kids, school is not their friend. I was valedictorian, so it was my friend, but it's not their friend. So how can I be, and I have in my mind, I have a legacy of Jedi masters. Well, what am I doing to inspire that? And then when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and then you came on, interrupted my workout.
Sorry, not sorry.
It's okay. And now, so I did the 90 days. I did 90 days about right after that. And then that gave me enough confidence that I had something to share. And I think you said something about, it's like, how do you find what to say? And you start sharing.
Yeah.
And then what you share, what actually starts coming out of your mouth when you find your voice, is what you have to offer. And then that starts resonating with people.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, if I could just bottle the belief around the truth of what you just said, we could just dole it out. I mean, it would change everything, because it's not about like, oh, well, is everybody going to make $10 million because they start telling their story on the internet? I mean, you can do these kinds of intellectual exercises and take them to, as many degrees as you want. But I actually think if we lived in a world, truly, like come with me on this. If we lived in a world where everyone was fully in touch with their voice and fully self-expressed and comfortable in their own skin, and had with finality discarded concern about the judgments of others, and a whole lot of other things that I think come of the type of work that you're describing, which is this going public, being transparent, being vulnerable, finding your truth. If everyone in the world did that, I don't even think we'd live in a world where anybody even really wanted $10 million. I think the idea that I need stuff to find fulfillment or find joy, or even just to insulate myself from the rest of the world, which is frankly half the reason I want money, is because the rest of the world scares me so bad. I just want space. Like all of these motivators for making lots of money, I think they'd go away to the point where we no longer even connotated success with wealth, and everybody was equally and fully successful. And like, you wouldn't even ask the same question. Oh, well, how much money have you made?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's actually that big a shift. Unfortunately, in the interim, when some people are making the shift and some people aren't, then we still look to the old currency or the old criteria to say, well, how is this working? Well, I don't know. Have you made money yet? Are you losing weight? Does your spouse find you more attractive? Or like whatever the criteria are now that are based on the screwed up world that we're in. But actually, this is the true prescription that would get us to a whole different world where we didn't need any of that stuff anyway.
Yes. And I put this little book up here. I think it may be Reverse the Game of Life. Are you familiar?
Oh, no, that looks right. Yeah. I haven't read it, but tell me.
So she, Florence Scovel Shinn, there was a big movement that the law of attraction was based on. You probably know this because you do so much research about stuff, but the law of attraction was based on New Thought movement. which actually started in the 1800s. And Unity Church was part of it. And Florence Shin, I think, was part of the Unity movement of some sort. And it is a few things we behold the Christ in you, which is namaste, is the biggest and brightest in me honors the biggest and brightest in you. And she talks about the game of life and how to play it. And she's got 4 quadrants, and one is wealth. And I think of wealth as like things that you acquire, and it could be knowledge or money or anything that supports you kind of externally or internally. Health. This is going to sound familiar. It sounds like Nietzsche's, right? Love.
Right.
But the 4th quadrant is self-expression. And I have done so much work. I was a super shy kid. Like, they thought I was mentally handicapped because I didn't speak when I was like 4, because I would just have this like bees and hornets in my head to even like raise my hand up to, I was like 30, and I remember being at a tour at Bath, like the Roman bath in Bath, England, with like 12 people, like old people and kids and stuff. And I had a question in there, and I was too scared to raise my hand to ask a question.
And this is the person who's now done the 90-day challenge with Entre, and by the way, hasn't stopped. I see you keep making videos.
I do. Yeah, that. And so the finding of my voice has been, when we talk about the big idea of impact, like Cameron George talks about the big idea, what's your through line? And when I did that exercise, which is part of Entre, y'all, when I did that exercise, I was like, oh my gosh, I have been searching for my voice, my voice, my throat chakra, since I was pre-verbal. And finding it makes me more wealthy than period. Makes me wealthy.
It's interesting. Yeah, because, I look at Entre and it's like, it sounds, and we live in a world that has such a particular lens that it looks through, right? And you, by the way, you mentioned earlier talking about coaching as a scam, which I'm totally happy to circle back to.
Oh, yeah.
Because it actually is all interrelated, talking about the paradigm of the world and the lens that the world looks through. And I look at Entre now, and the reality is Entre's produced for me finally now. After 3 years, for almost the entirety of the first 2 years, by the way, I didn't make a single dollar from Entre. Like, it was all just building and building and building. And finally now it's like, hey, this pays really well, right? We're a big company, but I kind of almost am like, I feel like the universe is making because the true currency of the true metric for me of Entre's impact is not how much revenue do we create or how much profit do I take. That's not it. But I also know that so many people in the world that are coming into Entre, they're still at the place where that is the primary result that they're looking for. Right? Because it's a big stretch to get people from a place of, to get people to a place where like money isn't even their number one metric of success. A lot of people say that, but like to truly get a person to where their life reflects that they're more interested in generating something other than money is like, that's a long stretch for most people. So I realize a lot of people are still coming in evaluating me on the basis of, well, how credible is this person to be my authority figure or whatever? And what they're really asking is like, well, how much money does this guy make? Right. And so I kind of feel like the universe has kind of been like, okay, Jeff, in order to support you in the work that you're doing, we're going to go ahead and let it be really profitable for a time so that those people can still be impacted by you. But like, it's also a test to make sure that I continue. And I don't know how I got on this tangent, but I'm just sharing with you.
About coaching was a scam, but then it's okay.
Well, yeah. And so I'm just sharing with you kind of where my head is at these days. But I feel like it's also all a test, because if the decision tree starts to originate in how do we make decisions that make us the most money, Entre will evolve in a very different direction than if it originates in how do we make decisions that make us the most impact or that make the most impact. And so I feel like I'm in this little phase right now where the universe is like, okay, we'll go ahead and give you some money so that the people that doubt you will be convinced that like you're successful. But it's also a test to make sure you don't get too infatuated with that, because remember, you're doing bigger work.
Yep.
And it's kind of an interesting like existential tension that's built around me right now. And it's why I want to have conversations like this. It's why I want to meet, or I want to like have personal connection with students and do things that create, I mean, you're not paying me to be here, and just create impact and keep proving to myself that I'm doing this for the right reasons, if that makes sense.